A lot of my thumbnails that feature a picture of me have a lot of background blur. While this is usually achieved by using a lens that has a wide aperture, I don't own one currently, so I use Affinity Photo. So welcome to a 3-minute tutorial where I try to teach you how to do the background blur for images, or simulate bokeh in Affinity Photo in under 3 minutes. You ready? All right, let's hop into Affinity Photo. Let's go.
All right, so here we are in Affinity Photo. So we're just going to go over here to File and New, as I always do, 4K. I go for a bit overboard with the DPI. It's not gonna matter at all when you're doing this, but if you want to do it this way, you can. Then you simply bring in your image, and this is the one that I'm going to be working on. Then we simply duplicate, Ctrl-J to duplicate the original image. After that, you want to go over to the image, right-click and rasterize. There's a very important reason for that. Don't forget to rasterize that. You will see why soon. Go over to the quick selection tool, make your selector brush size a bit bigger, and then you just start selecting. Now, I always select the subject. You could select the background in this case when you're doing this, but I find I just have better results by going with selecting the subject. When you get stuff that you don't want in your selection, you go to subtract, and then you can just take away the areas that you didn't want included. One thing you want to know about the quick selection tool, if you're clicking on something to subtract, the Affinity Photo understands that as a no-go zone from now on. And even if you start selecting around it, it's still not gonna, for the most part, select the thing that you just said, don't take this. Now, when you reach this point, when you have a decent selection, you want to go to refine. You don't want to use that, you want to go to refine. Because first things first, border width 10% is way too much. You want to go to 0%, or I tend to gravitate towards 1%. Then we go ahead, we feather it out just a little bit, just a few pixels, 1.8, let's go with that. Now, in here, you can also refine your selection. So you have your brush, you can choose the size with this selector right here. Then you can refine your selection. If you have hair or something like that, you just paint around the edge, and you're basically telling Affinity Photo to, hey, go back and look at this area more carefully. And for the most part, it does a really good job. It goes like, okay, I can see there's a bit more contrast over here, so I guess this is what you want me to find. It finds like stray hairs, stray beard hairs. This whole side, let's see what it does. Make the selection big enough so that it can see. And there you go. It grabbed all of that. My wonderful arm hair right here. Just make that selection, and I'm as hairy as always. Just make that. And you can of course do this as much as you want to get the selection exactly the way that you want it. Now, I'm quite happy with this. Remember, border width 1, feather a bit. Now we go to apply. Now this part is why we needed to remember to rasterize. We are going to go Control-C and Control-V. So copy paste. So if you don't do this, if you try to Control-C and Control-V on an image layer, it's gonna copy the whole layer. It's not gonna look at your selection. That is why you need to rasterize it. Now, once you've copied and pasted yourself into your new layer, you want to go back to the layer that you just had. You still want to keep your selection. Now, once you're in your middle layer, so the pixel layer, you want to go ahead and press delete. That way, you are now deleting yourself from the image that is underneath. There's a very important reason why you want to do that. After that, you select that layer, still have it selected, go to filters, blur, and now you can play around with the different blur options. I tend to gravitate towards lens blur because surprisingly we're trying to create like lens blur, so lens blur tends to be the best option. And now you just blur as much as you want. While you're doing that, you want to keep your eye on the navigator, because what looks good in the big picture will be barely noticeable in the navigator. And the navigator is giving you the better representation of what a thumbnail looks like because it's that small. So now you just play around with the radius until you get to something that you like. I'll go not too overboard, something along the lines of that. Then you go ahead, apply, and there you go. Now you have a lens blur effect in your document. The reason you want to delete yourself from the bottom layer is because when you go ahead and you apply blur, you are actually creating a blurry version of yourself or your subject behind yourself. That will lead to ghosting around your subject. So you want to avoid that. Now that is it for this 3-minute tutorial. Now go out there and make some real trendy looking blurred background images. Okay? Remember to have fun while you're doing it. All right, leave a like, comment for that sweet YouTube engagement, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.